So good morning, everyone. I'm Mikel Wako Barua, and I'm one of the stewards at PSAC 901. PSAC actually stands for Public Service Alliance of Canada, and but before I begin, we are two here representing PSAC 901, and I would give it to Jake to introduce himself.
Hi, all. I am Jake Morrow. I'm the current president of PSAC 901. I'm also a PhD candidate in the Department of English. I'm very excited to be here speaking with you all about some of the benefits of being in a union and being in a union here, and how you can be more involved as you go. Thank you, EK, for the intro.
Oh yeah. So basically, PSC scenario one, this is like a member orientation, just like you know. It's a union of graduate teaching assistants, research assistants, postdoctoral fellow scholars. So one thing that we might just try to clarify because some people might look at it, the first slide. Jake, do you mind going to the first slide?
Yep.
Like some people might go to the first slide and say, "Oh, I'm not saying research fellow here." Yeah. So basically, for PSC 901, we are just the union of graduate teaching assistants, teaching fellow, research assistant, and postdoctoral scholars at Queen's University. And these are our handles. We have PSCC 901 in case you're not following us yet. We have PSCC 901 on Instagram, PSCC 901 bargaining that you can follow on Facebook and Twitter or X. Right. Yeah, formerly Twitter. PSCC 901 and the website where you can get, live update is at www.pscc901.org. The next slide, please. Okay, so basically this is just like, operational definition. Yeah, like we're just trying to make sure that you understand what the union looks like and what we do, basically, like literally. Yeah, so a union is a legal democratic organization formed by workers to use their collective strength to have a voice and make positive changes in their working conditions. As TAs, TFs, RFs, and postdocs, we're all part of PSSNI one. And at over 2,002 members, we are the largest union and the largest employer in Kingston, Ontario. One thing you can trust us with is we are so much interested in you making positive strides, and so many times like graduate students come to Queens but they don't realize that they have a union, and some know that they have the union but they don't really have the knowledge of what the union is all about. And that's why we are here today, to give you an orientation of what the union is all about and why you should come to us in case you need help, you need assistance, probably you need grievances, which we would still talk about, or you want to discuss some issues in your faculty, in your department, or even to your stewards. Presently, like me now, I'm a steward. I started as a steward in 2022. I'm sorry, I should have started from there, but I started as the steward in 2022. And going forward, I was the occupational health and safety officer, but now I'm the past occupational health and safety. Noshin is here also, who is the current, occupational health and safety officer. But going forward, I want to be part of the union. I don't just want to leave the union, behind because we do great things, and I just want to be part of it. So I had to, be part of the steward again in the faculty of it. I have my baby kind of like running around, so please don't mind me. So yeah, basically, so the union is all about being here to you, being available to you, and being resourceful. So in case you need anything, the best place for you to run to is the union. And like I said, if you're a TA, you're an R, you're a TF, you're an RA, and postdocs also, the best place for you to come to, or the best people for you to, to talk to is the union. So some things that we work with is the collective agreement. We have a collective agreement, which is a contract that is negotiated between an employer and the workers and the worker union. So this is the collective agreement is what we go back to in case anything goes wrong, or in case there is any misinformation. Jake, do you want to continue from there because of my? Let me just attend.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So a collective agreement is a contract that's negotiated between a union and the employer. Sometimes when you start a job, when you're not in a union, you're responsible for negotiating the terms of your employment one-on-one with your employer, if that's your manager. If it was in a graduate student setting without a union, you'd be talking one-on-one with your employing professor who you're doing TA shifts for. A collective agreement is a contract that covers all workers under that job title, at that employer so that we don't have to do that one-on-one negotiating of contract details, things like sick days, rates of pay, hours that can be worked in a week, all these sorts of things. So again, that's something that's negotiated, bargained between the union as a whole and the employer. And the reason it's called collective bargaining and a collective agreement is because it is a democratic process of determining what the needs are of that union and how then the union comes to the table with the employer to voice the needs of the entire membership. We are in a bargaining year. Our contract actually expired in April. And so we are currently getting ready to bargain a new contract. And as part of that, we've elected a bargaining team, and we're going to be voting on bargaining priorities as a whole union at an SGM in September. And we'll have more info about that a little later on, but mark your calendars, September 25th. That's the opportunity for us all to prioritize what is important for us in bargaining this year. And I say us because I'm referring to everybody in the union. I'm currently the president of PSAC 901, but my single opinion is no more important than anybody else's. This is a wholly democratic body that does this bargaining together and decides on the path forward together. EK, do you want to jump back in?
Okay. Yeah, so PSAC 901, it's how the union works. PSAC 901 is a representative, just like Jake said. It's a democratic body that is made up of you and your colleagues from across Queens. Most times we have like activities, we have things around happening in the union that, you can just come around, we can discuss. And, there are some times that possibly you don't know who to talk to in your faculty because probably, even if you are like a racialized member or like minority, you feel like you're not safe, but you can easily come to PSS in Iowa because we understand, and it's kind of like it's a diverse set of group that we all can come in from different perspectives and make sure that we are reaching out, to that common goal. So the members, we have department stewards in some faculty, in some department, because like faculty of education now, they don't really call it department, so they call it faculty. And so, they can be department, they can be faculty. So no matter where you're coming from, whether department or faculty, we have stewards in those faculties. And we sometimes we have more than one steward, right, Jake? Yeah, so some department have more than one steward. Yeah, but like I think Faculty of Education, where I am from, is we have just one steward presently. And so, but other faculties we could have like more stewards. So if you have anything, you can easily, it's just like when we're talking about federal, we're talking about provincial, we're talking about, municipal, like local, like, these are people you can easily relate to. They understand what is going on in your department, and you can easily have some conversation with them. So we have local committees like in the union, which we still talk about to some extent. And we also have the executive committee that are made up of different members. We have like Nushin, like I said, is the occupational health and safety officer. We have Jake, who is the president. We also have likes of the vice president, postdoc, vice president, community. We also have equity officer. We have the co-chief stewards 1 and 2, who are like in charge of steward council. They're in charge of grievances and so on and so forth. We also have others that I can't really think of right now, but like different departments, you can easily check them up, look them up, on PSS 901 website that I shared earlier, and you can also see it on the slide here. So the stewards are elected at the departmental level. They meet monthly at Steward Council. This Steward Council is normally, coordinated by one of the co-chief stewards. I think co-chief steward 1, basically, but it could be one of them, it could be both of them, anyhow. Yeah, so we help colleagues, we help all of us because we understand the situation. So we help ourselves like navigate, working live at Queens, how it's like, the graduate studies itself is really like a strenuous activity, like being a PhD, being a master. So we understand what you're passing through, and we are also one of you. So that's why we're using the word colleagues, because we are all one. And as employees, we understand working at Queens, we know how it's like. So the stewards, at the end of the year, they have like an honorarium that we give to stewards. So if you're interested in becoming a steward in your department, because some department may not have, a steward presently, but I think most departments, maybe just 1% or 3%, but you can ask around. Yeah, you can easily sign up to become, a steward and talk to us. Either you talk to Jake, you talk to Noshin, you talk to myself, or you just go on the PSAC one, you check the executive members and you talk to anybody. Yeah, so if you're interested, the best person for you to contact is Chief Steward One, PSSNI1 at gmail.com. I think that's Emerson. Yeah, Emerson. Yeah. So he's basically, but you can easily talk to anybody, but he's the one in charge. Yeah. The next slide. So what are the benefits of being in the union? You have the sick leave, 12 hours. This is kind of like we have the 12 hours of paid sick leave per time. Yeah, I know like to some extent we are still fighting that. I could remember last year we were on this kind of stuff. Yeah, so if you're a TA or if you're a TF, basically you have 12 hours of paid sick leave, per term. And if you need more time off due to illness or injury, you can easily, take unpaid sick leave. Other types of leave included pregnancy and parental leave, bereavement, court, conferences and training leaves, gender affirmation leave, and more. Yeah. You also have accommodations for work. Like Queens must accommodate employees just like the way we accommodate as TFs. Probably when you start teaching, you see some student trying to tell you, oh, I need accommodation for this, I need accommodation for that. So same way the student have these accommodations, the same way we also have accommodations. Though we don't take note of this, but you have to take note of this, that even as employees, you have accommodations, you can easily request accommodations and it's within reasonable limits under the Ontario Human Rights Code. So you can have a union representative present at meetings with the employee wellness service unit for these accommodation processes. We also have grievances that deals with work-related programs that can be resolved through a grievance procedure. We have, like I said, we have the co-chief steward who are into this. The co-chief steward too, basically it's the one handling the grievances presently, I think. And so if you have anything related to work and anything that you think it's taking your time, or probably you are doing more hours than the allotted hours on the contract, or so many things you just want to discuss or you need clarification, and you think this is a grievance, you want to file it, you need to talk to us. You need to talk to, our members. Yeah, the executive members. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a just ask policy. So if there's something that's going on in your TA contract, or even just in your department, and it feels a little unsure, you're not sure if perhaps your rights are being violated, perhaps you're being asked to do more than you should, perhaps you're running out of hours and your supervisor's not helping provide more hours. Ask your steward and they'll help you look through the collective agreement, and the co-chief stewards as well.
Yeah, so the union representatives are available to help members at any issues that arise. Just ask policy. Jake, do you want to talk about the just ask policy?
Yeah, that's just what I was kind of saying, is like anything that comes up, if you ask your steward about it, they'll help you walk through it. And a grievance procedure, a grievance can be two things. It can be just an issue that arrives that arises that is a workplace issue, but it is also a process of addressing those workplace issues with the employer. So there are processes to solve that where you deal with your employment supervisor, perhaps with levels of management for dealing with employees and employee relations, but always with the union. And it's a completely confidential process. Just by asking doesn't mean you have to go through a grievance process. If you initiate a grievance meeting or something like that, it doesn't mean you have to go all the way. PSAC 901 takes an entirely member-centered approach for dealing with grievances. So anytime that something arises and you feel like you might want to have some support or just know your rights in a situation, reach out to your steward. If your steward is somebody who you're not necessarily comfortable chatting with, reach out to the executive officers. You can always reach PSAC 901 at staff.psac901@gmail.com. That's one of the easiest ways to reach. But check out the website, and that's got links to where you can reach people as well, psac901.org. So just a few more things here that are benefits of being in a union. One is bargaining. As I was mentioning before, we engage in collective bargaining, and this is a way to make sure that the workplace is fair. So as a worker, you don't have to bargain the terms of your work and your employment by yourself. That can be a strange power dynamic when you're trying to advocate for yourself in the workplace on your own. Luckily, as part of collective bargaining, you are not alone. You have over 2,000 members who are bargaining those terms of employment with you. The contract that we have, the collective agreement that we have, the hourly rate, the time off, all these things come from a process of over 2,000 of us coming together and bargaining for what we have. So you shouldn't feel bad about taking time off. You shouldn't feel bad about not being able to complete work in the hours that are assigned, these sorts of things. We have very specific rights in that collective agreement that were bargained for. Not only do you have the backs of the 2,000 folks in PSAC 901, we are also, and we'll get into this a little bit more a little bit later, but we are also part of a larger union community at Queen's. That is over 5,000 workers strong who are unionized workers and who have each other's backs. So we're going to get a bit more into that and that solidarity in a moment, but just to pop back to work-related and discipline issues, in that collective agreement, you also have protections for if you're facing discipline from your employer. So you are able to have a union representative at any disciplinary meetings. Just as a general rule of thumb, if you feel you're being disciplined unfairly or you're not sure, again, reach out to your steward. Just ask. It's always best to make sure that your rights are being followed and that you have support going into situations. So for those who aren't as familiar with unions and union contexts, we've got a few recent union wins that came up over the past couple of years. First off, here on the left, we have the UPS Teamsters contract win. This was a big one last year that was in the news. So the UPS drivers went on, I think it was the largest strike in US history. It was 100,000 members, if I'm remembering correctly. And they were able to put pressure on their employer to get huge wins on wages. But one of the big things was getting air conditioning in the UPS trucks. I can actually see a UPS truck delivering to my building right now. And those trucks get hot in the summer. And so by coming together, they were able to advocate for a safer, healthier workplace that allowed them to do work that they needed to do without putting themselves at risk. On the right there, the WGA, the Writers Guild of America, and the Screen Actors Guild of America. This was another big in the news union win that happened last year. You might remember that writers in Hollywood and actors went on a big long strike, the writers especially. By coming together, they were able to galvanize public support for their workplace issues, which included for writers and for actors, worries about being replaced by AI, getting strong language in that collective agreement to protect their jobs in the workplace, to allow for better wage rates, day rates for actors. All this sort of stuff is part of the collective bargaining process. There is an amount of bargaining that happens with an employer at the table, but the thing that really gets wins in a union context is everybody coming together and galvanizing support for each other in solidarity. In the middle there, that's QP 3902, and they are our sibling union at University of Toronto. QP 3902 is the union that represents TAs, teaching fellows, I believe adjuncts as well at U of T. They are part of a number of unions at U of T that had their bargaining periods come together at the same time. And they came together in solidarity to demand more of the university. It was not only the TA and the academic worker union, it was also hospitality workers. It was also custodial workers. It was pretty much all workers on campus came together and demanded minimum acceptable conditions and wages for not only themselves but for each other, and they got historic gains across the board by doing that. For 3902 members, one of the big things that they were able to win was a condition in their collective agreement that tied the number of hours that a TA ship could make up in your funding package. So I know that for most folks, you have to do a TA ship or an RA ship as part of your funding package. That can take up a whole lot of hours to do that work. By having a strict number, a percentage of what that can make up, that helps protect the workers from taking on more than they can. So you're just working for the university and not able to do your research, because the reality of the situation is those funding packages are criminally low. The reality with graduate funding is that many of us are making less than half the minimum wage. If you do the calculations out of how much you would make as a food service worker, working minimum wage for full time. As graduate students, many of us who have to already have a master's degree to be doing the work we're doing, we're making half that amount. So these are just ways that we've seen in the public eye, workers coming together, demanding more, and getting huge wins. So other unions on campus, I mentioned at U of T, QP 3902 joined with all these other unions to demand better contracts, not only for themselves and their members, but for each other. These are some of the other unions that are on campus, and the majority of them also have contracts that are expired or expiring right now. So QP 254, QP 1302, QP 229, these folks are custodial workers, food service workers, librarians, library techs. You have Ontario Public Service Employee Union and ONA. ONA is the Nurses Association. Steel workers are admin across the university, admin staff. And then we have CUFA, who is not bargaining a contract currently, but they'll be bargaining one next year. All these unions notice that our contracts are coming up at the same time, and we've been working together to find ways that we can come together in solidarity to leverage, again, that collective strength of not only 2,000 members, but 5,000 members. If you're stronger together with your 2,000 colleagues, imagine how much stronger you are with 5,000. And there's going to be lots of opportunity to show that solidarity and support for each other in the coming year. And we'll get to some of that in a bit. But the main thing to know is that this is going to be a really big, important year for unions and unionized workers at Queen's, and that includes all of you. So why do grad student workers need a union? Ike, do you want to jump on this slide here?
Okay. Yeah, so like I think like Jake been saying, we like talking about what we do and why you should, be close to the union. So this is also one of those things like why the graduate student workers need a union. And so we have the food support program because I think last year and preceding years there had been like a food support program. I'm still hopeful that probably based on budget, we could have something like that. I know Jake could speak more to that, but we understood that we have like most of the graduate student workers are like living in poverty. Just like Jake said, most of them are living like below the minimum wage. Like if you just, for example, like you just leave the masters and you go out, you go work, you just realize that it's more like you've been suffering yourself, and some people even question you that why do you have to go through this stress, when you can just go out there and make good money. So these are the things we experience as graduate student workers, and we need to fight collectively. So part of those things that we realize and we feel like we should help in our capacity is like bringing out the food support program. And one of those things, like it's stated on the slide, like 10% of our membership is food insecure. Why most graduate students live in poverty? Just like Jake said, over 5,000 members, you can imagine. Yeah, so over 5,000 members. So there is also this misclassification of RAGR. Yeah, let me use myself as a sample because I had a personal encounter with this. When I came in, when I wanted to, when I was going for the position of occupational health and safety officer in 2022, 2023, yeah, when I was running for the position, I felt like because I've been a steward, I've been around for a couple of time, like, okay, yeah, so I can participate. But I just realized that my affiliation with the union is not there in the sense that I was just a GRF. I was not an RA. And there was like a difference. Let me just tell you the difference between like the GRF, the Graduate Research Fellowship, is meant to support a graduate student while they develop their research, professional or technical skills that is needed to complete their degree requirement. So it's basically based on your your research. If this is not kind of like related to your research, it's not GRF. So RA is like any other research related work. It could be anything. It could be here, it could be there. It could be something even outside your field, outside your scope, outside your thesis, your dissertation, and stuff like that. It could be something your supervisor just wants you to do, probably in the lab or somewhere else, or kind of like a project that, your supervisor wants you to handle, but it's not related to your, work, like your thesis at Queen's. So, but when it's related, it's a GRF. And so when I was doing this whole RA stuff, and I was thinking basically it's like I was like doing RA job, but the work is not related to my work. It's not related to my, my thesis, but I was doing it with the mind that, oh, I'm part of the union, like, stuff like that. But when I wanted to run for the position, I just realized on the during the AGM, the annual general meeting, you know, they just had to like raise the motion, to support that because I had to get like a reference from my supervisor or from one of the faculty members that I would be a TA, in subsequent like in the following months, which I did. I did a TA, I did a TF. But because I never had like a TA or TF or even Harry then, it was really a kind of like a confusion and a kind of like running around and here and there and raising motions. So if you don't want to see yourself in such mess, if you are doing something that is outside your research, it's a hurry work. So you have to let your supervisor or anybody, any faculty member hiring you, that this is a hurry job. And going from there, I had to approach the faculty member, and the faculty member said it's my choice if I want to go for GRF, if I want to go for RA. And another thing that all the supervisors would do is that they would assume they don't know, but they know differences between GRF and RA. But because of the fact that they just want to pay you penny, they give you like like a GRF work and they say this is GRF, and so but with RA you can, I think the subsequent slide will speak to this, you can easily calculate your time, like the number of hours you'll be using, and so from there you can easily say, okay, this is the amount of time I'm spending on this. One thing I would also say is this: you are graduate students and at the same time you're also graduate student workers, so don't overstress yourself. Your focus, your main, like we'll talk about this in subsequent slide too, your focus is your research, is why you are in Queens. So the other one is a secondary. When it comes over your work, definitely you're on the other side. So you don't want to be on the other side. So you want to make sure if you're doing GRF or if you're doing RA1. So if you're doing GRF based on your supervisors, that's fine. But just make sure that what you're doing, if what you're doing is outside the scope or outside your thesis, make sure you're doing a Harry job. And if it's in line with your thesis, you know that you're okay, you are into GR. So basically, we are, as PSAC 901, we are more interested in RA. Like I said, we are more interested in probably in the questions. You might want to ask questions about this, but we are more interested in RA, TA, and the postdoc scholars. Next slide. Okay, so yeah, like I said, all employees must have a contract. that complies with the collective agreement. So you can easily track your hours. So you know if you're going, if you're close to going over your hours. So the time tracker you have, if you click this link, probably you see the time tracker for teaching assistant, for RA, you have it on the website, so you can easily, navigate this and see it. So when you have your contract, there are things you want to take note of, because these are things we experienced last year. And we noticed that some contracts are not well dated enough. Some contracts are not even signed early. They are not being, sent to the graduate student workers early. And these are concerns, because if you are going to take up a TF role, or if you're going to take up a TA role, you have to understand the details. You have to understand what you're doing, the responsibilities. You want to understand your duties. You want to understand the time allocated for it. So these are the things you want to look out for. So the first thing is that the contract should detail all assigned duties with estimated hours for each. The contract should make sure you understand all the duties and that the time allocated seems fair enough for you. Like I said, you're a graduate student, you're also a graduate student worker. So don't do something excessively at the detriment of your work. So you must receive a copy of your signed contract. You both signing it, probably it could be like online, they would ask you to sign it, and your supervisor will sign it or the graduate office will sign it. You must be able to, download to have a copy of this signed contract. So because we would need all these kind of things as a union, for us to, if anything happens and you want to take this up or you want to file a grievance, these are the things that we can use with the collective agreement, because we need, like a proof, we need like an evidence. Yeah. So you want to check in with your supervisor halfway through the contract to review how the hours match up. In case you have, the first person you would want to do is that, okay, possibly if I'm working with someone and you think that probably I'm spending more hours, you want to have a conversation with them and see how it goes. And when you see that this conversation is not going in the line that you think based on the collective agreement, you then come to PSAC scenario one. You talk to executive members, we can easily take this up and have a chit chat and conversation with you. So do not work beyond allotted hours. This is very paramount. Specified in your contract without confirming that you will be paid for your work. Sometimes you might want to work, extra, but you have to, it has to be agreed upon that there is, like you will be paid extra for this. But if there is no agreement, you are on your own. And if you don't want to be on your own, you need to talk to PSAC 901. Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know, Jake,
and
if you want to add
yeah,
more to that.
yeah, just a couple of things like the with when you should get your contracts for folks who are teaching assistants for this coming term. Yesterday was the deadline to get teaching assistant forms. So your department should have given you teaching assistant forms yesterday to be able to look over those duties and those hours and how those are allotted. So if you haven't gotten them yet, we're going to be putting out a reminder today that those should have gone out yesterday, both to all our members and to departmental admins, because it's a contractual obligation that the employer gives us our contracts by the Tuesday before the start of the term. So this is again one of these things that's in the collective agreement that protects our rights. The other thing to really note about how duties are assigned is that those are not set in stone duties of exactly how long it takes to do this work that you are being assigned. As graduate student workers, we're paid by the hour, not by the task. Most of the time, when a professor, an employment supervisor, is assigning, it will take this many hours to mark this many assignments. That is largely an educated guess, but a guess. It doesn't account for different people's needs and accommodations. It doesn't account for sometimes the reality of how long it takes anybody to do that sort of work. This is why it's important to check in on those hours to make sure that they're working. There are mechanisms in the collective agreement to ensure that you're able to have those conversations with your supervisor. So where do you find your collective agreement? On the website, we have the Unit 1 and the Unit 2 collective agreements right there on the website, psac901.org. That's your place to find all things PSAC. We have physical copies in the office, but I like to use that digital copy because you can Control F search for whatever is going on. If you're looking for info about hours of work, Control F hours, and you can go through that collective agreement. But we've compiled some greatest hits, and I'm just going to run through these through some of these quick, and then we can. So hopefully we have time for like Q&A at the end in case there's specific questions that folks have. But some of the things that are covered in the collective agreement. Do I have to miss class because the tutorial I'm TAing is scheduled then? No, as EK was saying, it is always your research and your learning that come first in this relationship with the employer. And that is enshrined in the collective agreement. You shouldn't be missing any of your class or your research duties to do TA work, TF work, RA work, all that stuff. The day before class starts and I don't have a contract, is that okay? No, as I was just saying, the TAFs should be in your hands as of yesterday. Then you have up to 2 weeks into the term to go over that contract with your employment supervisor. Make sure that you understand before you have to sign that contract. It's Labor Day, Thanksgiving. Do I have to work? No, not usually. It's time and a half for working on a federal holiday. That's 19.02 article in the collective agreement. This can get tricky with marking and stuff. If you have scheduled yourself to do marking on the holiday, that's not necessarily time and a half work. If your employment supervisor is asking you to do work on a holiday, that is time and a half. But if you are asking yourself to do work on that holiday, that's a different question there. I've been marking for 8 hours straight. Do I have to keep going? Not if you don't want to. Employees should not be required to work more than 8 hours scheduled per day. There's an exception for field trips, but you should be given plenty of time to do your marking. If you're put in a situation by your employment supervisor where you have to do all your marking in one batch and it's taking you more than 8 hours, you are entitled to overtime pay. This is also the case. We should only be working an average of 10 hours per week. So if the way that your contract is scheduled has you working more than 10 hours per week, that is an issue. And you can bring that up with your steward and see how you can resolve that with your employment supervisor. Yeah, any extra hours should be pre-approved. So talk to us, talk to your employment supervisor if you think that you're going to be put in a situation where you deserve overtime pay. I think I'm running out of hours. Do I have to keep going until the job is done? No. There is in the collective agreement a time for a midpoint review to go over your hours with your employment supervisor. 16.07G, do that because again, the way that those hours are contracted out is often an educated guess by your supervisor, but a guess. It doesn't necessarily account for the specific circumstances of yourself as a marker of what comes up during the school year. How can hours be reallocated? If the hours are needed to be moved around, that is fine, but you need a new contract that lays out how those hours are allocated. And you, again, can't be asked to do that extra time. You also can't lose work hours as those contracts are allocated. If you need more work hours, you can negotiate a new TAF that accounts for those hours. If you get to the end of your contract hours, but the work for the course you're TAing for example, there's still more work to be done. It is not your responsibility at that point to do unpaid work. The department and your supervisor can offer you more hours to do the work that is left to be done in that course, but it is not a requirement for you to take on extra work beyond what the hours you agreed to work that term. If you want to, bonus hours, that's more work. Again, like graduate student life is a financially strapped life. But you do not necessarily have to take on that work if you don't want to. If there are more hours to be assigned, there should be a new teaching assistant form, and you can sign that. Again, these are guesses of how long it takes to work things. It's also important to note that any required training for your TA-ship needs to be paid training. There is specific language in the collective agreement that all required training must be paid. This one's important for teaching fellows, anybody doing a teaching fellowship, anybody who has a seminar. You created notes, materials for the course. Can you keep that? Yes, those are your creative property. The university does retain the right to use some materials that you develop if you develop them well employed by the university, but those are your intellectual property as well. If you develop that prior to employment at the university, it is not the university's right to use that material. But if you develop it in the course of your employment for the university, then that is material that the university retains the right to use. It is still your intellectual property, but in the contract, Queen's has non-exclusive, non-royalty bearing license to use some or all of those materials. Okay, so historic bargaining year. We've chatted about this already. Again, all of these groups on campus are coming together to bargain for a better Queens together. There's lots that's going to be coming up, lots of ways to get involved, but the big thing is that there's going to be a lot of stuff focused around bargaining. There's a few committees that meet on campus as PSAC 901 committees. We have mobilization committee that gets the word out to members about what's going on. We have Stewards Council, as we've talked about. We also have our social justice and political action committee. That's where a lot of the advocacy work, social justice work, takes place at PSAC 901, and it's a great committee to join. We have all these groups and ways to get involved on campus. We also have events coming up. The big one coming up is our fall barbecue, which I'll give you the dates for that in a moment. But one way to get involved right away is a majority petition. PSAC 901, as well as all these other unions on campus, are currently collecting signatures for a majority petition to show that we are standing in solidarity with each other and we demand better of the university. All these unions on campus are looking to get huge member support, and we're asking everybody to sign on, but not only to sign on, but to have a conversation with a colleague about why bargaining is important, what's important to you in your work that you're doing. So I'm going to share the link right here to sign on to the petition. And I encourage you all to use that little QR code, sign on to this language here at the side. And you will get like a follow-up with somebody who will just ask you a couple questions about what's important. I'm just going to leave it on here for one moment so folks can QR code it up, go to the link and sign on to the petition. And I'll read this out loud in case anybody wants to hear it. The wording of the petition is PSAC 901 members, including teaching assistants, research assistants, and teaching fellows, are united in our concerns about the financial strain caused by historically low wages and funding relative to the cost of living. We urgently need better funding to cover our tuition, housing, healthcare, and basic living expenses. The quality of teaching, grading, and research we provide suffers due to the financial stress, especially for those in equity-seeking groups. Students and faculty in our university community deserve better investment in the services we provide. We call on the administration to support quality campus services, as well as respect and dignity for all staff through protecting jobs and fair wages. And we declare our unity to support the demands of all other Queen's workers in this cause. And this is something that there's slightly different wording for other unions on campus, but this is something that everybody is signing on to. all unionized workers who are currently in bargaining or entering into bargaining. So be sure to sign on in solidarity with your colleagues, both grad student workers, postdoc fellows, and beyond. And there's a slightly different petition for postdoc fellows. There is also a petition going around there. So if you are a postdoc in here, postdoc scholars, and you want to sign on to the petition as well, reach out and we'll get to that link. EK, do you want to take it here?
Okay, just because of our time, I will just run through this so we can have questions. So the way like Jake had said, like the ways you can be involved in the whole stuff is we have different events coming on, like the Fall BBQ. This is a great event. Don't miss it. I'm telling you, don't miss it. Like you will really like it because it's one of my best so far. So yeah, so you will like it. So we also have the SGM where you can know where you can be opportune to see how things are going on. And most of these things are ways like when I was also a steward, how Jake encouraged me to be like, in the union. These are ways you can be part of the meetings, the SGM, like the Steward Council, it's free. It's open to everyone rather. Like you can easily, join, just get the link and just be part of it. The Social Justice and Political Action Committee too. We have people like the VPC and the equity officer who are in charge of this, and the mobilization committee too. It's held bi-weekly. Like you see, like the times that there's also the I don't know, like no shame, like there is the joint health and safety committee here. I don't know why it's not here, but we also have the joint health and safety committee, like oh, rather the joint health and safety committee. Yeah, so we usually have the OHS meeting that's called the occupational health subcommittee meeting. Yeah, so in case you want to discuss or you're interested in health and safety concerns, you also want to be part of this. Yeah.
May I say
So we have the times of meetings and the date here that you can easily, So the fall BBQ, most importantly, September 17th. Don't miss it. So the Steward Council is every month. Social Justice Political Action Committee every month. Mobilization Committee is held bi-weekly. And the next meeting is September 12th at 6 p.m. Robert Sunderland Hall, room 554. So you can also follow the 901 table on Instagram for you to see how the updates are going. I think Nushin is trying to raise the hand. Yeah, just want to jump in.
Thank you, Jake. Just wanted to bring up this point that we recently have advertised the vacancy for JHSC Unit 2 representative, which means postdocs. If any of the people are interested, just follow the link provided in one of the latest newsletters, and we will be more than happy to have you guys as our crew members.
In addition to what Nashid said, it's a paid position, so you're being paid for what you do.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's an
in the TA rate.
Yeah. Yep. The next slide, Jay. Yeah, so you just stay connected. The best way if you want to get any information, like right now, you just want to email psac901@gmail.com. It's always on the go, and you just get, information that you need, any information or any clarification that you need. Follow our website where you can get, timely updates, psac901.org, and also our handles. The best way you can do this is like following these handles for you to know what's going on. Yeah, on campus. Yeah. Jake?
Yeah, and that is the presentation as we have it. Thank you all for your attention and your patience. Any questions that anybody has about anything we've chatted about, we're happy to talk through.